DePaul University, Lena Rajab, Lena space Rajab. I have family currently in Gaza, and Gaza is my hometown. Both of my parents are from there, specifically Beit Lahia. And the fact my tuition money is going to the genocide of my own people is disgusting. Now we will hear from a few other students and community members who stand with Palestine in our encampment.
DePaul administration declares stalemate and tells students they will not divest from Israel's human rights abuses. Chicago, May 11th, 2024. The DePaul Divestment Coalition, a diverse group of students calling on the university to divest from the killing of Palestinian civilians, began their encampment on April 30th, joining hundreds of campuses across the globe. Today, the university ended their conversation with students and refused to engage in further negotiations. DePaul has indicated they will remove the encampment with an unclear timeline of when. Although students have expressed their openness to continue negotiations, the DePaul administration ended negotiations today and declared it as a stalemate, pressuring students to close down the encampment immediately. The university has refused to disclose their investments and has indicated that they will not divest from human rights violations on civilians. Students have been in negotiations with the DePaul administration on encampment's demands to disclose investments and divest from weapons and arms dealers engaged in Israel's bombardment of Gaza. Over 40,000 Palestinian civilians have been killed since Israel's bombardment of Gaza began on October 7, 2023. Israel has destroyed the majority of civilian infrastructure in Gaza, including hospitals, schools, and universities. Henna Ayesh, a Palestinian student and a member of the coalition, states why she takes part in the encampment, quote, "I do not want my tuition money to be invested in my family's suffering," end quote. With little notice, DePaul intimidated students into a meeting from 9 p.m. until about midnight on Friday night, although students pleaded to have the meeting at a later day given Shabbat and Jum'ah services for students in the DePaul Divest Coalition. Jewish and Muslim students were forced to take hours out of their religious observances and time with family to meet with administrators. The conditions by which the administration attempted to forcibly convene the Friday meetings with carelessness towards religious observances and under the threat of referral through the student conduct process is antithetical to the university mission statement as an institution that prides itself on religious diversity. Administration attempted to unreasonably force students to sign an agreement today with many concerns left unaddressed or terminate negotiations effective immediately. Students in the coalition chose not to sign the administration's unreasonable agreement and asked to continue the negotiations to be able to construct an agreement which respects and honors Palestinian life in solidarity with Gaza. Rather than listening to their concerns within a reasonable time frame, President Manuel abruptly ended the negotiations without clear next steps. In doing so, engagement team has created an atmosphere of anxiety among students and families, including children. DePaul's namesake, St. Vincent de Paul, dedicated his life to advocating for social justice and serving the most vulnerable in society. Vincentian values remind us of the compassion and unwavering commitment we must demonstrate towards the marginalized and those who are suffering. Parveen Mundi, DePaul Student Government Association president and member of the coalition, said, quote, "As a student at an institution guided by Vincentian principles, it is incredibly troubling that DePaul University has not spoken out on the current genocide in Gaza," end quote. The coalition, with the support from groundswell of students, alumni, faculty, and staff, and the wider community, are committed to ensuring that DePaul University works towards divestment from killing and human rights violations.
Let's go, Byron.
Good afternoon. My name is Byron Lopez, and I'm the alderperson of the 25th Ward. And we're proud here in support of the students at DePaul University using the First Amendment right to denounce the genocide, to denounce the complicity of our own government that now has clear evidence that international law has been broken, and we do have a responsibility to protect the lives of the people that are also paying for tuition dollars in this campus. We just heard from a student whose family is at risk because of the genocidal state that continues to be supported by our own US dollars. We demand immediately that the violence that is perpetrated against Palestinians stops, that the genocide is stopped by our federal government. Students are using their voices, they are in the right side of history, and they're doing it peacefully without any provocation. I think it is unconscionable that the University of DePaul, that is a faith-based institution, where we know that Pope Francis himself has denounced the genocide, instead of putting the lives of our students and families first, it is prioritizing the priorities of the funders and those people who are complicit with the genocide. That is why I'm here with my family, I'm here with my children, and with my wife, because it is important that we put into perspective why students are continue to protest, and we are not going to allow what we see in other campuses across the country, in UCLA or in Columbia or even in the University of Chicago, where force have been used unilaterally and conversations have been broken abruptly by the administration, not by the students. I have been direct witness of the multiple days that peaceful demonstrations have been on this campus. We have been encouraging more dialogue. We've been encouraging, of course, that the students use their voices. And yes, a part of this strategy, and I think is working, is divestment from the genocide that is affecting our people. So today, we are asking the university to come back to the negotiation table, to refrain to use any force against students that are peacefully demonstrating and they're using the First Amendment right. And furthermore, those who perpetrate violence, those who provoke, those who come to actually instigate and create violence in our city, those individuals and those organizations should be investigated. Again, I am extremely proud and grateful that students in DePaul University and other campuses are demonstrating peacefully, because federal officials are disconnected, out of touch, and complicit and corrupt. And that's why we continue to see the genocide. So we are here, we continue to be here in support of the students at DePaul and in anywhere where we have peaceful demonstrations, because that is the way that we have seen time after time that apartheid states are broken, and that we are seeing time after time students, like they done in the 60s, that were done in the 80s when the South African apartheid was broken, have been the most effective peaceful demonstrations that we've seen in our country. There's nothing more American than the First Amendment right to denounce injustices. So, I'm thankful again for the opportunity to speak, and we're going to be here in full solidarity, and we again publicly are asking the university president to continue the dialogue, and we're asking the mayor of the city of Chicago to refrain to using the Chicago Police Department in any of these demonstrations, because they're peaceful, they're moral, and they're the right thing to do. Thank you very much.
Now we will hear from Student Body President Parveen Mundi.
My name is Parveen Mundi, and I am DePaul's 2023 and 2024 Student Body President. I've been here since the very start of this encampment, also here as a member of the Coalition Board and negotiator with the administration, also here as the petitioner behind the DePaul Divest referendum that will be running on the student government spring election ballot in just a few weeks. And if there's one thing that I can say about the state of what has happened in the last several days, if you ask me, this university is currently approaching its willingness to negotiate as if it lacks the imagination and boldness to imagine a world in which these demands could be met. And I say that because I believe truly that this institution has had the opportunity to do business differently, to live out its mission of compassion and justice and action rooted in justice. Can you hear me all right? And I'm here alongside the members of my student body and the DePaul community, because there are no universities left in Gaza. And this administration is too spineless to admit that. This administration has refused to stop its complicity in the destruction of Palestine and its people by meeting our simple demands. And the reason that we're here at this encampment is because of the administration's repeated refusal over years and years of asking for the simple demand of divestment. So let me make it clear that despite this coalition's dedication to encouraging and facilitating a community built with empathy and compassion and continuing to come to the table in good faith, this university has met us with constant disrespect, professional ignorance, and extraordinary apathy. Beyond breaching the confidentiality of our initial meeting with the administration by sharing an email out to the DePaul community full of lies, this administration continues to undermine our encampment by inserting themselves into de-escalations and comforting counter-protesters instead of standing for the safety of this encampment. And let me make one thing abundantly clear. The reason that so much has evolved in the last 24 hours is because this university has decided that vague threats that they are unwilling and unable to specify to our negotiating team are so much so that this encampment should not, that to them the only possibility is that this encampment closes. But if you ask me, this university, instead of immediately responding to alleged threats made by unidentified hate groups and defending the right of their students to protest, this university is disappointingly deciding that the only logical solution was to convey in meetings was to convene these meetings that were no longer about discussing the demands in good faith, but an attempt to force the closing down of this encampment. So let me make one thing clear. I will be here with these students until DePaul divests. Woo! I'm here to protect with every ounce of my being that I have these students' right to protest and to do so without external forces interfering in a matter that the university could simply negotiate and come to the table in good faith and actually have a conversation about our demands. We will not back down from these thinly veiled threats and the university's decision to characterize our negotiation as a stalemate when we are wholly and fully willing to come to the table. We will not leave until DePaul divests. Thank you.
Now we will hear from a Divestment Coalition board member.
Hello everyone, good evening. I am a board member of the DePaul Divestment Coalition. The fire of Rafah is spreading. I need you all to understand the gravity of this statement. One day, Rafah will be your hometown. You will be incinerated while sleeping. You will be shot, arrested, and tortured. By that point, do not portray yourself as the victim in all of this. You stoke this fire via complacency. The fire that is burning Rafah will consume you. F-word America and your state-sponsored sports spectacles that cost billions while several more billions of your taxes are used to export your killing machines to murder 1.8 million Palestinians trapped in an open-air prison even smaller than it was before October. Liberalism's only objection to imperial politics is on aesthetic grounds. DePaul University is here because they want us off their quad so they can continue their state-sponsored fest. They want to brush student demands under the rug, sweep us, censor us, repress us, and clean up. The DePaul Divestment Coalition is present at this table through the escalation of an encampment. Might I add, only because of this escalation, because the administration has ignored the student body cries to accurately acknowledge the ongoing massacre of Palestinians for the past 75 years, a disregard that has been especially heightened for the past 6 months since October 7th. This is not only a disruption to instill the fact that life has not and will not continue as usual, as our brothers and sisters in Gaza are slaughtered, but also a representation that we are here in a liberated zone, imagining a future where a multicultural, multi-religious, diverse background of people can coexist and self-govern harmoniously. An imagined free Palestine, an ornament of the world, are liberated zones governing as ornaments of the West. Most of all, I saw students experiment with making a society. They were experimenting with self-governance and with educating, entertaining, praying with, feeding, defending, organizing, and caring for one another. This is a quote from the Columbia encampment. Students across the world have risen to the call of the student intifada, a call central to globalizing the intifada or the uprising and further empowering the Palestinian liberation movement. The youth has awakened to an unprecedented level over the course of the past 6 months. This is not an individual reservation.
The coalition is here to represent the youth who know the truth. These tents are here as a symbol of solidarity. The fire of Rafah and the glory of Gaza is well recognized, and we stand here to tell Palestine you are not alone, you have not been forgotten. Rather, Palestine is the soul of our soul and has ignited the fire within us. You can physically remove the encampment, but you cannot uproot the seeds of solidarity. The fire is already here, catching quickly. Your state-sponsored spectacle will not go on. Your complicity must end now. We are not leaving until liberation.
Free Gaza now!
Free Gaza now, yes!
We will now hear from Jared, an alumni of DePaul and members of both DePaul's Jews for Justice and Students for Democratic Society.
First of all, I want to thank SJP, USPCN, AMP, and all other organizations in the Chicago Coalition for Justice in Palestine for their steadfast commitment to Palestine's liberation. They've inspired everyone at this encampment. Those of us lucky to know every day that our families are safe and our beds wait for us each night at home, to fight for the people of Gaza, who for nearly a century have not been able to say the same. As you know by now, DePaul has brought divestment negotiations to a stalemate. At this point, we've come to expect such lifeless, bureaucratic warmongering from the self-proclaimed Vincentian values-loving university. I was a member of Jews for Justice for a short time before graduating. Within the organization lies a community of revolutionary anti-Zionist Chavayrim. I founded the Radical Reading Book Club with Jews for Justice members, which meets now at this encampment. In fact, this speech I've written is on the back of a poem, Over the Wall by Rifat Arir, which we read at the last meeting. As a proud anti-Zionist Jew, I have a sense of duty to call out anti-Semitism, and it does not lie in the hearts of organizers here today. Rather, our administration, like the false idol of the colonial Zionist project Israel, has used the Jewish identity to bastion their white supremacy amidst the most widely covered genocide in history. Yes. American institutions conveniently follow the American blueprint of being against anti-Semitism when it lines their pockets, but not when Nazis march in our streets or when Holocaust deniers hold positions in office. This trend is not new. After the Second World War, Jewish refugees were turned around by the boatload, while over 1,600 Nazi officials were given positions in government institutions like NASA and the Department of Defense. We are not stupid, and we're not a monolith. Jews for Justice calls upon DePaul to divest even now, and more importantly, we believe with a fervor in the power of the people. Our people are not new to fighting fascist systems of oppression, and we stand unwaveringly behind the Palestinians fighting for their liberation, until liberation and until victory.
We will now hear from Nana, President of Students Against Incarceration.
Like any other university, DePaul University is unique on its own. Many of us came to DePaul because of its investment and interest in social justice and community care. This institution is deeply entwined with the legacy and mission of Vincent DePaul, an individual known for educating and caring for incarcerated folks, lifting up his own community and supporting those in it. It is a requirement that all first-year students at DePaul take a course on Vincentian history and values as part of their course requirement in order to gain a greater understanding of the school's emphasis on social justice. There is a list of courses available for students to take after their first year that covers everything from religion to gender to race and studies on multiculturalism in America. Various courses of religion dimension are also offered for students, which allows them to gain a deeper understanding of the practices, narratives, and perspectives of variety of faith and beliefs. Rather than focusing on instilling religious belief in students, DePaul continues to invest in private prisons, prison labor, weapon companies, and State of Israel. Not to mention We now know Vincentian priests and followers own slaves as well, which is so ironic. But on the topic of horrible things DePaul has done, let's name a few of them. DePaul offers 25% tuition discount to those enrolled in the FOP program, along with 75% tuition reimbursement offered by the city of Chicago. FOP members who gain an A as their final grade can have their entire tuition for their program completely covered. DePaul community continues to invest in private prisons and prison labor while using their inside-out classes as a continuation of advertisement for the community on community care and social justice. In 2014, a student referendum to divest from corporations that profit off Israeli occupation of Palestine passed, and yet the university has not acted on the demands of students. Now, in the middle of a genocide against the Palestinian people, DePaul University has the chance to uphold their Vincentian values and be the first university in Chicago to divest. As an international standard to make history, we want our alma mater to be one on the right side of history. And many board of trustees at DePaul have direct investment in weapons companies. DePaul prides themselves on Vincentian values, yet continues to normalize violent language towards Palestinian individuals, which directly contributes to the occupation and ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. SAI does not condone the increase of police, weapon, and surveillance on campus. We believe DePaul's proposed increase of security officers will perpetuate violence, racism, and abuse, as well as create harm to the increased obstacles for those outside of the DePaul student body. DePaul has always been an open campus since we are situated in the center of Chicago, and they claim to say the city is our campus for some reason. That relies on the resources of communities. Although President Manuel has stated that ID checks do not make DePaul a closed campus, SAI recognizes the small initiatives of ID checks when we need to enter the library to use the bathroom, or when we need to enter the library to do our midterms while being a part of this encampment. As of last week, DePaul has hired a private company, P4 Security Solutions, which I never heard about. Here's the direct quote that I found on their website. There is no one well-equipped, trained, disciplined person to handle the situation than an off-duty police officer when there is potential threat. Whether you need an off-duty police service in Chicago or in any location for a single event or around-the-clock coverage, we have you covered. Our company is recognized throughout Chicagoland and Illinois as the premier provider of professional off-duty and retired police officers. Our security roster exclusively consists of several hundred seasoned, active, and retired law enforcement officers. These officers, these security guards who've been walking around campus, are armed. They have posts located in various buildings throughout DePaul. They have access to the DePaul cameras that are literally on this call surveilling us. I just wanted to add that the surveillance is ongoing and DePaul needs to divest now. I think they're afraid of divestment because many of their board of trustees have direct investment in weapon companies and private prisons. I could be messy, but I'm not. This is all online. You can search it up for yourselves, but I'm gonna be messy for today. This includes the chairman of the board of CEO of Republic Bancorp Corporation. They also have members of the Old Nation Bancorps, and last year they had a Latin American operation of McDonald's Corporation. I leave you there. Do the rest. Find the research. It's all online at DePaul University. Search up board of trustees, and you can find out who is involving themselves in this occupation. Thank you.
Now we will hear from Lydia, a member of the DePaul Faculty for Palestine.
I'm here on behalf of DePaul Faculty for Justice in Palestine. It's a group of faculty and staff fully supporting the students and the encampment. As faculty and staff, we will not be deterred by fear tactics. Our contingent staff have already been targeted. Regardless, we remain in full support of the students here. Education and learning does not happen in solitude, nor is it a one-way practice as faculty and staff at DePaul, we learn from our students just as our students learn from us. With that, we stand behind our students as they teach this community that liberation is not just a theory. Our students are carrying out exactly what this goal pushes them to do. As such, we demand that DePaul not join other universities that have chosen to call in the police to inflict significant violence on their own communities rather than address the students' concerns and demand that reflect the deep realities that underlie these nationwide protests. DePaul must live up to its Vincentian values of a spirit of charity and compassion towards others. By directly engaging with student protesters, not through proxies without decision-making power, nor through punitive actions to negotiate their demands and seek resolution. We demand amnesty for all student protesters and their faculty and staff supporters. This amnesty must extend to charges of discrimination and harassment based on support for the Palestinian people and critiques of the State of Israel. Such charges, as well as formal investigations of legitimate political speech, academic subjects, are violations of the Constitution and of the academic freedom that in our mutually agreed upon university governance documents, and create a chilling effect on legitimate inquiry and speech. Immediately seize all university communications that are fueling a climate of fear by suggesting that campus is a dangerous place and that there's any safety threat coming from the encampment on the quad. We share your commitment, we share everyone's commitment to ensure that no acts of hatred and violence, Islamophobia, or anti-Semitism are tolerated in our community. Communications from university administration have conflated criticism of the Israeli state with anti-Semitism, thereby making it difficult for those outside of the encampment to understand the peaceful mission of the encampment and hinder much needed and sought after community building from happening throughout our campus. And as long as the students are here, so are we. Woo!
Okay, now we will hear from Nick Sous, Chicago Coalition for Justice in Palestine member.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you guys hear me? Yeah. Not that close to the mic. My name is Nick Sous. I'm a member of the U.S. Palestinian Community Network and speaking on behalf of the Coalition for Justice in Palestine. I first must express that as an alum, I am not surprised at all by DePaul University's cowardice stance to claim that they are at a stalemate with the current students of this generation. In 2014, I was one of the proud student organizers of SJP DePaul and the original DePaul Divestment Coalition, who passed a historic referendum that called on the university to divest from the apartheid state of Israel because of their human rights abuses towards Palestinians and African migrants. We recognized at that time that Palestinian liberation includes the fight for Black liberation and other liberations around the country. And divestment of weapons manufacturers profiting off of the apartheid state is divestment from the police state that murdered Laquan McDonald, and militarization and state violence across the world. At that time, the university created what they called a Fair Business Practice Committee that would review their investments to assure they were ethical. That was shortly dismantled not too long after. This university thinks that when we graduated, the generations that came after have no idea what type of agreements and decisions were made from the generations prior. But we have institutional knowledge in our SJPs, and that information has been passed along to this generation. They have years of student organizers behind their back who have been documenting every conversation, every meeting this administration has had with them. Their faces in those offices may have changed, but their tactics have proven to not change one little bit. This is how we know that DePaul University, and I'm going to call him out by name, Rob Emanuel as well, who's the president of DePaul University, has been acting in bad faith with these students the same way they had in 2014 and 2011 in past years and other campaigns for that the students were fighting for. We know their words in their public response to the students is the same lip service that's been given for 10 years and even longer. The Divestment Coalition in 2014 passed a resolution almost to the date 10 years ago, and nothing has come of that from the university. They would rather invest in the bombardment of churches, mosques, hospitals, and infrastructure needed to survive, and claim that that aligns with their Vincentian values.
That's not right!
As a Palestinian who is also Catholic, I say shame on this university. CJP and the broader community has been backing up the student uprising since the very first encampment that happened in Columbia University. DePaul students heard Zionists were hosting counter-protests against them and against this beautiful encampment community. And our community came and protected it because we keep these students safe. If this administration commits to shamefully bringing the police to raid this peaceful protest filled with our children, students, and community members, we will show up to protect them as well. We will call for rallies on this campus, even if the administration takes down this encampment. So be mindful of that, DePaul. Our community has former student organizers and alumni who were here in the 1990s, in the early 2000s, the decade of 2010, and the decade of 2020. And we're all behind these students no matter what. DePaul University said to the students throughout these past 12 days that they want this encampment gone, and I have one message for them. Divest, and I will personally come and take this down with them. Anything less of that with your false promises will not bring any conclusion to this encampment. I forgot to spell my name, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. It's Nick, N-I-C-K, Sous, S-O-U-S. Thank you.
Now we will hear from Attorney Ben Meyer.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Attorney Benjamin Meyer, B-E-N-J-A-M-I-N-M-E-Y-E-R. I've been working with the negotiating team, the student negotiating team, during their negotiations today. I've been very disappointed by the conduct of the administration during the negotiations. This morning I learned that the administration had sent a document to the students and insisted that they must review the document and prepare to discuss it by 3 p.m. The document was several pages long. The students reviewed it as best they could, but they wanted additional time to review what the administration had sent them and discuss how they would respond. So one of the initial statements that the students made was they would like time to consider the administration's position and resume discussions on Monday. The administration flatly rejected that and said that if the students did not negotiate to an agreement today, the university would state that the negotiations were in stalemate and left no further process forward in the negotiations. So the students did engage in negotiations today beginning at 3 o'clock. The negotiations continued until 5:30 p.m. At such time, the students told the university that they had other obligations that they needed to attend. Two of the student representatives actually had to leave the negotiations due to other issues that they needed to attend to. And in addition to, and at that time, the students asked again that the university can pause negotiations until Monday. The university at that time said they would not pause the negotiations and were prepared to continue negotiating through the night to come to some sort of resolution that would dismantle the encampment. It's important to note that this university also engaged in discussions on Friday with students, demanded to engage in discussions with Friday on students, which they knew was a Muslim day of prayer, and they also know that today is Shabbat for the Jewish students who participate in the coalition. and it was disrespectful of the university to insist that negotiations happen on these days when they know that students have religious and family obligations on these days, and also to reject the students' proposal to continue the negotiations on Monday. So far, the university's response to the students' demands has been very disappointing. Their negotiation tactics have also been disappointing, but I encourage the university administration to return to the negotiating table on Monday in the hopes of reaching a peaceful resolution where everyone can walk away feeling like their needs have been heard and their voices have been heard. There's no need for a violent confrontation on this campus between anyone who comes to dismantle the encampment and the people who are encamped here peacefully, non-violently. And I hope that this matter can be resolved through negotiation, not violence.
Free Palestine, free Gaza!
Now we will hear from Shareen, DePaul alumni for a free Palestine.
Hey everyone, I'm an alumni and I'm part of a group called DePaul Alumni for a Free Palestine, which includes hundreds of alumni that stand in solidarity with this encampment and stand in solidarity with all of their demands. When I was a student, I was involved in Palestine organizing, and not to show my age, but in 2011, we had a campaign against Sabra hummus, and it's a brand of hummus that supports two brigades of the Israeli military, the Gavadi and Golani. And these two exact brigades were the same brigades responsible for the violent ethnic cleansing of hundreds of Palestinian villages, including my own family's village in 1948. Although DePaul initially removed the product from their shelves, once it was publicized, they had us go through administrative processes and put it back on the shelves. And the same sort of negotiation process that students are going through now. At the end of the process, they concluded that they would not boycott Sabra because the company's support for the Israeli military was moral in nature, not material like arms or weapons, but Sabra gave blankets, meal kits, etc. to the soldiers. But we don't buy that reasoning because that's why people mass boycott Starbucks and McDonald's. Not because they give weapons to Israel, but because they support Israel's occupation in other ways. That being said, when it came to their conclusion report on Sabra, the administration at the time still saw some kind of red line for the material support like weapons and arms. In 2014, we saw that DePaul student body voted to divest from weapons manufacturers that profit from Israel's occupation. But even then, the university still hasn't divested 10 years later. And this current administration flat out refuses to even talk about divesting from Israel's war crimes, and whether it's weapons or not. And they won't even do the bare minimum and acknowledge what's happening as a genocide. They won't even call it that. The students were way more than reasonable and kept indicating to the administration that they're here to talk, while the administration closed the door on them. Hearing from students how the administration has been so cold and callous, not only to the students, but to the 400,000 Palestinian lives that were killed by Israel by U.S. weapons, to the over 2,000 million Palestinians still in harm's way, to not care about human life, and to only care about their image, and to only care about their pocketbooks, is shameful. As an alumni, a lot of us decided to choose DePaul as our school because of its stated Vincentian values of social justice. But today, they reminded us and they showed us that they're hypocrites, and that they bring shame on the name of us as alumni. How can we be proud to have gone to this school when they refuse to remove its complicity in a genocide that's happening in real time? History will remember. I'm proud of the students for standing up for what's right. Myself and other alumni will continue to support the students and demand that our alma mater join the widespread calls from people of conscience around the world in supporting a lasting ceasefire to end the siege on Gaza and to end the genocide. Students, we have your back, and we'll continue to have your back in pushing until Palestine is free. Thank you.
Okay, we have just two more speakers and we'll be taking questions. So now we have Rabbi Brent Rosen, Rabbi of Tzedek Chicago and Jews for Justice in Palestine.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to say briefly that I am part of a Jewish community that is increasingly voicing its conscience over the ongoing genocidal violence that Israel is unleashing in Gaza, and in fact, the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians for the last several decades. There are many, many Jews in the Jewish community who stand in solidarity with Palestinians, who understand deeply what is going on at a campus such as DePaul. It has been my honor to stand in solidarity with the students of DePaul. It's been my honor to be here last Saturday night and this Saturday night to lead a Havdalah service, a service that commemorates the end of the Jewish Sabbath, together with the Jewish students here, the Muslim students here, Jews of all faiths, students of all faiths, and people of no faith. This is a truly pluralistic community that is coming together to voice their conscience. And DePaul is part, as we all know, of a growing movement that is breaking wide open around the country and around the world, and it is not going away. No matter what happens here, this is only the beginning. And increasing numbers of Jews in the Jewish community will be part of this movement as well. The call of the students of DePaul is rooted in morality. It is a principled call. It is rooted in human rights, in international law, and is very, very simply saying that they do not want their hands stained with the blood of the people of Palestine, and they don't want their tuition money being used for militarism in Palestine and around the world. This is a deeply principled call, and the university's response to it has been shameful. As we have just heard, it is clear that DePaul, like so many other campuses around the country, campus administrations around the country, have not been negotiating in good faith and have no intention of negotiating in good faith, and would rather respond by unleashing violence against their own students. For shame! Just last week, we learned that at the University of Chicago, while they were sleeping in their tents, the police was called to break open the camp with terrible violence against people who had been peacefully demonstrating in this morally based call for divestment. I want to say just briefly, personally, how I feel as a person of faith when I hear that the university here is calling to immediately negotiate on the eve of the Muslim Sabbath and the Jewish Sabbath, knowing full well that student negotiators are people of faith. For a university that is ostensibly a faith-based university to engage in that kind of disingenuous negotiation is shameful. Shame! Shame! I just want to conclude by sharing what I shared with the students here last week and this week, and that is that they are showing us the way. The citizens of this country would do well to follow the example of students such as the students of DePaul and other campuses around the country, and young people around the world who are refusing to comply with demands that they fall in line with apartheid, with ethnic cleansing, and with militarism, and are rather in very real time showing us what real community looks like. And that is happening right here, right now. This is what truly the kind of world that the students want to see, that they want to grow up into, and we would do well to follow their example. I personally, and many members of the Jewish community, will continue to stand with them no matter what, from this time forward, no matter what happens going forward, because this movement is only just beginning, and it is our honor to be able to stand with them as part of it.
Lastly, we have an alum who was the first Palestinian student body president from 2021 to 2022.
Hi everyone. I'm going to keep my words brief, but it was just something I just remembered that I wanted to share. So I was president from 2021 to 2022, and that was the year that we elected a new president who happens to be Rob. And just couple quick stories. There was one day we were out at dinner just to kind of get to know the different candidates, and we were sitting there and he had asked me where my family was from, and I told him my family was Palestinian. And he asked me so many questions about our culture, so many questions about how it was growing up in Chicago, being a Palestinian at DePaul, and I told him about our community. I told him everything that we had experienced here. And in my time in SGA, we passed countless resolutions, countless statements, different things that we can do to help the university actually see us. And in that dinner meeting that we had with him, I finally felt like we were seen. So of course he got the student vote then. And now I have a question for you, Rob. Where did that student vote go? I was a student body president and I was a representative for all of us and we elected you and you're sitting in meetings completely dismissing your students, the students that spoke to me and the students whose voices I relayed to you, we have a huge problem. You wouldn't be in the position you were without my student vote. So please, here are our students, be here for us, and we're not going anywhere. Thank you. Now we will hear from Attorney Tarik Khalil.
Last second edition. Tarik Khalil, T-A-R-E-K, last name K-H-A-L-I-L. I'm here on behalf of American Muslims for Palestine, and I'll make this very brief. You know, I've always said for many years that we must always uplift students because it is the students that are our future leaders, and they will take the mantle and take us to freedom, justice, and liberation. But in fact, what I've noticed is the reverse is true. The students are uplifting us, and instead of waiting for us to pass the baton to them, they've snatched it from us, and now they are taking us and carrying us to the finish line. I am proud of our students, I am proud of our student body, and I am proud of this entire country with these encampments expanding day by day. And based on principle stances, look around you, you see a sea of peace. You see a sea of people calling for basic justice, basic demands. Our money must not go towards the funding of genocide, the funding of apartheid, the funding of oppression. Our tax dollars are already going towards the bombing of innocent human beings. $3.5 billion a year with potentially an additional amount, U.S. tax money and U.S.-made weapons bombing Palestinian children as I speak. This is a shame on this government. This is a shame on this university that they're not even willing to disclose where the money is going. This is a cowardice act, and we must stand with our students and uplift them. And inshallah, one day we will have a free Palestine.
Palestine! Free, free! Palestine! Free, free! Palestine! Free, free! Palestine! Free, free! Palestine!
Okay, now we will be accepting questions.
Any questions for media?
Are you guys worried at all about the police intervention that you've seen, at other colleges in Chicago?
I don't think we're worried.
Repeat the question. Repeat it out loud for everyone to hear.
Okay, she asked if we're worried about police intervention, but obviously before we even planned this encampment, we already knew the risks and what we were getting involved in. So we had already been preparing for police intervention, so we do have police liaisons on site. We have marshals dealing with this, and we even have the National Lawyer Guild, so we are fully prepared for an intervention of police.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that, again, we keep us safe, and so we have prepared to keep our encampment and our community safe because we are not leaving until DePaul divests, and I think it would be an incredibly huge mistake for this administration to consider authorizing CPD presence on its campus. And I think, to your point, having seen the response of other institutions across the country.
In the meetings, did they threaten using CPD?
His question was, in the meetings, did they threaten using CPD? So this is something that has been coming up as someone on the negotiating team, something that we've been constantly seeking clarification to, especially in the last 24 hours. Our question has been, well, if we don't agree to what you've presented us, what happens next? And so what's most concerning to us is that the president's office has is unwilling to directly answer what exactly happens now that a stalemate has been declared. It was clear to us, based on the document that was presented earlier this morning, that they would like to, that if we had taken that agreement, they would have cleared us out of this encampment by noon tomorrow. And so right now, whether or not the CPD swirling around this campus will actually take a step onto our quad is up in the air. And despite our many attempts to clarify, would this administration authorize Chicago Police Department presence on our campus, the president himself and his office and the engagement team were unwilling to answer that.
Are there any other questions?
I have a question. Did the university invite any other student leaders to join their engagement team?
To the best of my knowledge, that is correct. So that was a question that I myself, as the student body president, was wondering. To the best of my knowledge, another student was invited onto the administration's engagement team. That was not myself. And so I still ended up coming to the table because I'm here negotiating for the actual students who are advocating for themselves through this encampment. But yes, her question was whether or not any other students are on the administration's engagement team, and I believe the administration made an intentional effort to not at all make me aware or even invite me to be a part of their response to the student protest in an attempt to undermine my solidarity for this encampment and my role as the petitioner behind the divestment referendum, which they've been aware of for several weeks.
I have a question. On behalf of 14 East Magazine, what is the strongest aspect of community for the encampment?
She asked, what is the strongest aspect of community here? I think the strongest thing is obviously, Parveen has mentioned before, that we keep each other safe, that we're not depending on CPD, we're not depending on administration, we're not depending on campus security to keep us safe. Because as we've seen before, there have been non-students who have come onto this campus trying to disrupt what we have going on here. And we've seen administration on the other side not protecting its students, but non-students who don't even pay tuition here. And it was up to us students to, have de-escalation tactics in place. It was up to us to come together as a community to keep one another safe. So I think that's the one strong thing about this community. But on top of that as well, obviously, as you can see, this encampment is very peaceful. Every single day we have, whether it's rain or whether it's shine, we're still out here, we're still chanting, and we're still coming together from multi-ethnic backgrounds and religious identities. So yeah, I think that was the strongest aspect of this encampment in terms of community.
We keep us safe! 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 We keep us safe!
The entire time that I've been here, I've noticed that there are lots of families, lots of young children, and lots of older folks as well. And I wondered what your thoughts would be if the CPD gave the risk factor that would offer to the peaceful children and elderly people that have been here the entire time.
So your question was relating to the families, the children that we have at this encampment, and whether or not CPD would be a risk factor, if I misunderstood. So I think exactly to your point, DePaul University is an open campus and has been for a very long time. This has come to our benefit in the fact that we are able to, as the longest standing and now only standing encampment in the city of Chicago, rally our community behind the demands that so many of our peers at so many other schools and our broader community hold. And at the same time, that is exactly why we have been continuously pressing the administration about what their intention is now that they have decided to mischaracterize the state of our negotiations at a stalemate. Knowing that, we do in fact have families here, we have children here who stay overnight. We are an open campus, and so I think to your point, to us, despite the vague sense of urgency being conveyed by the administration, to us the biggest threat is the Chicago Police Department. It's not any other external force, not people who are uncomfortable on social media that college students are risking their comfort and convenience to stop a genocide. And so I wholeheartedly believe that the Chicago Police Department would be a huge risk factor to the community that we have here, and that's exactly why we are anxiously waiting to see what exactly the administration is going to do now that they have, again, mischaracterized the state of our negotiations and our willingness to have a conversation around demands as a stalemate.
I also want to add, though, too, that, I mean, as we speak, 40,000 people are dead. As we speak, Gaza is being bombed. As we speak, parents are carrying their children in body bags. As we speak, there are doctors who are performing, amputation surgeries on their children without anesthetics. To genocide, it's not surprising that they're not considering the risk factor of families here.
Any other questions?
I have another question on behalf of the DePaul. What compromises, if any, did the university bring to the table regarding your demands during negotiations?
So your question is, what compromises did the university offer?
If any.
If any. And so if you want to answer, feel free to go ahead. So I believe President Manuel's office sent out an email to the DePaul community during this press conference, including a link to the very document that they had sent the 6 student negotiators prior to our 3 o'clock meeting. It outlines some of the vague interests and things that they're willing to explore with regard to some of our demands. However, we found that they were unwilling or unresponsive to a huge number of them, namely one, especially around divestment. So the university was willing to only offer that some members of our coalition, with sometime within the next 6 months, get to have one meeting with certain members of the trustees, and at the same time, that divestment would never be formally added or considered by the Board of Trustees. So to some, that might sound like a concession, but to us, that's non-responsive to the demand. Other examples include, I believe at some point, they had offered to consider or were interested in the creation of the Southwest Asian and North African Student Center, which is something students have been asking for about 10 years. That was, again, an offer, but the issue is that once you read that document, you'll see that they predicated the entire document on us entirely closing this encampment and 2, limiting the divestment coalition's ability to organize at all in the future. And so we do not believe that the concessions that they even attempted to make or were kind of pretending to make while not answering or being completely unresponsive to divestment were in good faith at all.
On top of that, one of our demands was to at least address the genocide, which is a very simple demand. But if you go back to that statement that's actually public to everybody here, they couldn't even call it a genocide. They said that they stand against genocide, but that according to them, what's going on in Palestine is being contested as a genocide internationally, so they can't actually declare it as one. Even though, as we can see, United Nations is saying otherwise, the ICJ case is saying otherwise. 40,000 dead, I guess, is not good enough for DePaul to call it a genocide, even though in past statements of solidarity for the Black Lives Matter movement, they have declared public solidarity for, humanitarian rights. But I guess when it comes to Palestine, it's not good enough.
If there aren't any other questions, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming out tonight. We just want to remind everyone that we have a rally tomorrow at 1 p.m. and we'll also be having Mother's Day programming in the evening. Thank you.